Now, I've done different types of comparisons on this channel before. I've compared all the major tools. I've outlined the advantages, the disadvantages, and also have given you my personal opinion as to which tool that you should be using. And the fact of the matter that a lot of these tools are very, very similar. They all kind of work in very, very similar ways. They all kind of do very, very similar things. So at the end of the day, it comes down to your preference, which tool you prefer and which tool kind of works best with what you're kind of used to and what you're willing to learn. Now, this comparison video is going to be very, very different because I'm going to be comparing two tools, two awesome and amazing tools that are completely different from one another. And before I get into the comparison, I just want to say that both of these tools are excellent. They allow you to build amazing apps. They allow you to build those apps quickly and easily, and they allow you to build amazing apps without writing code. The main difference with these tools is the approach. FlutterFlow works one way, Bravo Studio works another way. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to be telling you 5 things that I like about each tool. And at the end of the video, I'm going to be giving you my preference and kind of my opinion as to which tool you should pick to build the app that you want to build. We are going to start with FlutterFlow. Now, I've been using FlutterFlow for quite a bit now. I've built tons of different apps. I have decent amount of experience with FlutterFlow, and one of the best things about FlutterFlow is that it gives you an integrated environment where you can design, build, and seed your app with any kind of data that you want. So for instance, here I am inside FlutterFlow's UI, and I have different pages. I can build using different UI elements. I can add different widgets. I have access to databases. I have various schemas here. I can go out and I have Firebase. I can use APIs as well. Here I have API connections as well. And plus I have also powerful ways to implement logic, which is very, very important when you're building apps. And after all said and done, you can preview the app, you can test it, you can run it, you can even share the link. So you have everything that you need in order to design, build, implement, test, and ultimately launch the app. The second thing I really like about FlutterFlow is that it's based on Flutter, which is an industry standard framework for building apps for any screen. So here I am on Flutter's homepage, and as you can see, this is very, very serious. It's very fast. You can reach users on every screen. You can transform your workflow, and it's trusted by many. So if I check out the ecosystem, I can see that lots and lots of people use it. It was designed and built inside of Google. Google is actually using it to power some of their mission-critical apps, and you have a lot of these big companies using it. And so you can be certain that FlutterFlow, the tool which is based on Flutter, is a tool that's not going to disappear tomorrow. It's not going away. It's not, it's not going to go bankrupt. It's based on Flutter, and so as a result of it being based on Flutter, you can absolutely be sure that it's going to be around today, tomorrow, next week, next month, etc., etc. The next thing I really like about FlutterFlow is that it gives you flexibility as to how you want the data to be stored. You have access to APIs, which we're going to get to in a second, but you also have access to your regular database. So in this case, it's going to be Firebase's FireStoreDB. So here I am logged into my FlutterFlow account. I'm looking at one of my apps, and here I have a direct connection to Firebase, right? So I can add a new collection. I can add different fields. I can tie this schema to my existing Firebase project inside the Firebase console. And this gives me access to very, very fast and reliable database. Plus, I also have a very, very easy way of connecting my app via API calls to some third-party data. So for instance, here I have a translation API, here I have a send email API, and there's lots and lots of APIs which allow me to create pretty much any kind of app that I want. And the nice thing about FlutterFlow is that it makes it really, really easy. The fact that I can define my schema for Firebase, Firestore DB, the fact that I can define my API call, I can respond and test it. I have my JSON paths here. And this allows me very, very easily to kind of send the data that I need and get the data and kind of pick out the data that I need for my apps. Another thing that I really like about FlutterFlow is that not only do you have a very, very rich FlutterFlow community with different videos, different forums, different articles, all over the internet, including FlutterFlow's own documentation, but you also have access to various Flutter packages. So if you head on over to pub.dev, you have various packages that are designed for Flutter, but because FlutterFlow is based on Flutter, it uses Flutter under the hood, you can use any of these packages inside your app, and you can simply take a look at Flutter favorites. You have most popular packages. And it's very, very trivial to go out and integrate any of these packages inside the app that you're building in FlutterFlow. Another truly powerful feature of FlutterFlow is the fact that you have access to custom code. So if you head on over here to this second to last tab called Custom Functions, you're going to be at a screen called Custom Code. And here you can build your own custom functions. You can build custom actions, and you can build custom widgets. And so depending on what kind of app you're building, what kind of customization you are looking to implement, the kind of features you want to build for your end users, you might be using just custom functions, or you might be using just custom actions, or you might be using custom widgets. And this essentially allows you to create your own pieces of the app, your little pieces of the app that react to user input and display the data that the user wants to be displayed. Or you might be leveraging all of these three functionalities, which is definitely not uncommon, for a very, very sophisticated app with lots of screens, lots of different functionality, and an app that does something very, very useful to the user. Now that I've told you my 5 favorite things about FlutterFlow, let's now talk about my 5 favorite things when it comes to Bravo Studio. So the first thing I really like about Bravo Studio, which is completely different than just about any other no-code tool, is that you have a different workflow. The first thing you do is you design an app in a completely different tool called Figma. And after you're done, you import this design and finish building the app in actual Bravo Studio. So here I am in my Figma account. I'm looking at different designs. I have lots and lots of beautiful professional designs. And after I'm done, all I need to do is pick the design that I want, share it, and start a new app by clicking Create a New App. And following that, I can actually connect this design to the various data components, test the app, and ultimately deploy the app. And this is an important distinction when it comes to Bravo Studio, because no other app builder that I'm personally aware of actually has this kind of workflow. And initially, I wasn't really convinced by this workflow. I wasn't sure that this is the right approach. But as time went on, as I started using this tool more, I realized that this is a really genius approach, because now I have the best of both worlds. Now, the second thing I really like about Bravo Studio is not really Bravo Studio, but actually Figma. And I know I've kind of talked about it in the previous point, but it's worth mentioning that Figma is state-of-the-art design platform. It's not simply a tool that you use to build something. It's a lot more than that, because not only is it very, very easy to build different UI elements for different screens, for different viewpoints, but I also have access to a community. And above all, I can actually use a desktop app. So let me show you. So here I have a desktop app that I'm using, and I have access to all my files here. And if I want to, I can go to a community, which is pretty much one of the best parts when it comes to Figma. Okay, so here I can browse different design systems, visual assets. I can click on mobile, and I can look at different UI elements, different components, different UI kits. And this thing is second to none. The fact that you have access to an entire app, that you can essentially implement an app with 10, 15, 20, 30, and in some cases a lot more screens, I can essentially take that whole design and build an app of that, modify it a little bit. This definitely makes Bravo Studio a very, very powerful tool, and not a lot of app builders have that functionality. A lot of app builders allow you to kind of build the UI, but it's nothing compared to actually using a professional tool such as Figma. So the ability of using a professional tool to kind of position the elements, or go out and find a design that has been built by a professional, is definitely a big advantage in my book. The next thing I really like about Bravo Studio is that it allows you to very, very easily implement complex app flows. So let me show you what I mean. So here I am back in Figma, and I'm about to open a so-called Bravoized file, template file. And what that means is that this specific design has been adopted for Bravo Studio. So if I open this file up, you can see that I have entire app here. I have all the screens. But what's interesting about it is that you have screens that are slightly different. So for instance, we have the screen that does not have anything. It does not have any elements. It has something called a skeleton. And that is because this is a special screen that you're going to be using when a particular part of your app is loading. And that's why it's called trips loading, state loading trip. So this is one example. If we scroll around, we have another screen that does kind of the same thing. Here we have another loading screen that specifies that the state for the screen is loading for a specific date. So in a situation where you're using an app that allows you to book different reservations, you're going to input your start date and your end date, as well as maybe a number of guests and some other data. And when you hit continue, there's going to be a period where the app is looking up whether certain resource, such as an apartment or a car, is available to be booked. And that is where you can easily design a screen and tell Bravo Studio that this is going to be a screen that needs to be displayed if the app is searching for something. So essentially, you're going to have a screen that's going to be displayed in between these two screens, which is a very, very unique approach to building apps, because typically you're not going to do this in just about any other no-code builder. You're going to have these two screens, this screen here and this screen here, and then maybe inside the app builder, you're going to specify some kind of logic that says, okay, if you click on it, if this hasn't been loaded, or, if you click on it and it hasn't fully redirected to the screen, display some kind of a spinning thing. Now, in my view, the approach that Bravo Studio has taken is a lot more sophisticated and just a lot more intuitive, because this way I know that this screen is a loading screen. I know I have another screen that's loading. I know that I have an image that I can display in this screen, so I can have a screen that uses this image. Another thing that's really nice about Bravo Studio is that you have an empty state. You have an empty screen. And this is awesome because now you can display a situation as a screen, not as a component, but as a screen when you have an empty state. And so other no-code tools handle it in one way or another. I know FlutterFlow handles it as a component. So it does it on the component level. So you're going to have one screen. If it's empty, it's going to display this. If it's not empty, it's going to display a list. But in my view, I actually prefer this approach better. I prefer the fact that I can concentrate on building one view, one page for situations where I have data, and then another one where I have no data. And in my view, that's a lot better. It's kind of like the same thing with loading screens. So there are lots of things that Bravo Studio had thought over, and they decided that their approach is going to be more intuitive as compared with some of these other no-code builders, and pretty much all the other no-code builders, as far as I'm personally aware. I really, really like this approach on focusing on different screens as opposed to doing everything programmatically, as you have in a lot of these other no-code builders, or with some builders such as FlutterFlow, you're given a special component that you have to implement there as well. I really like this screen approach. The next big advantage of Bravo Studio is the way it deals with APIs, okay? So here I am in my API collections. And if I want to create a new collection, if I want to feed data into my app, and typically that's what you're going to be doing whenever you're going to be building an app, you're going to come here and you're going to click on create a new collection. And you're going to be giving a choice between 6 different options. And these 6 different options are extremely powerful. The first option is start from scratch, and this is the option that your typical no-code tool allows you to do. This is the option that you have in tools like Bubble, in tools like appgyver, in tools like FlutterFlow, etc., etc. But what not a lot of no-code builders give you, and as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen any no-code builders that give you these options, is the fact that you have something called an Airtable wizard. So this allows you to have your data in Airtable and use this wizard to connect directly to your Airtable account using an API key. And FlutterFlow does not allow you to do that. Not a lot of tools allow you to do that. In a lot of these other tools, you would need to, for instance, to connect to Airtable using bare APIs. And while that approach works, I have to admit that there are some issues connecting with Airtable directly using APIs. It's definitely not as intuitive for beginners. And even if you have some experience connecting to different APIs, connecting to Airtable APIs does come with its own set of headaches as well. And so I definitely appreciate the fact that Bravo Studio was generous enough to build out their own Airtable adapter. Another big benefit of using this Airtable wizard is that it's going to generate API endpoints for you. So if you are connecting to your Airtable database, it's going to automatically implement the list and the detail endpoint. So this is awesome because all you have to do is input your Airtable API key and you have a direct connection to your database. And this essentially means that you can use Airtable as kind of a local storage, right? You can connect to your free Airtable account, have a base, have a table, use this, and you don't have to worry about configuring your APIs and things like that. But it doesn't stop here. You have a Xana wizard, you have an Open API import, you have a Postman import, and you have a Swagger import. So if you haven't used APIs extensively, you might not realize the advantage of these tools. But for instance, a Postman import and a Swagger import is extremely powerful. Okay, Postman is a web app. Right? So Postman is a web app that you use to build APIs, to test APIs, to create APIs. And instead of importing those endpoints method by method, you can import the whole thing. This is essentially importing bulk requests from a Postman file. And a Swagger import is awesome as well because a lot of third-party tools, they have a Swagger file, which is essentially a definition file. Essentially, it's a file that defines all the different endpoints for a specific API key. So if I want to use something like a translation service or a speech-to-text or a text-to-speech, maybe from a Microsoft Azure web services, I can get a Swagger file and import it here and start using it. And this is truly amazing because I do not know any other no-code builder that gives you an Airtable wizard, but also gives you like a Swagger import, a Postman import, Open API import, and a Xana wizard. So as far as I'm concerned, Bravo Studio's API connectivity is definitely second to none. And when you start building your app, you're going to appreciate it right away. Last but definitely not least is that in Bravo Studio, you can test your mobile app right on your phone. So all you have to do is go to an app that you're building. So here I have an app that I was building. I can just click on preview the app on your phone. You're going to go in here and you're going to download an app called Bravo Vision that's available in the iOS App Store as well as on Google Play. And right inside your Bravo Vision, you're going to be seeing all the apps that you have. So if I go to apps, I have 2 apps here. You're going to see both of these apps and you can simply run them. And that way you can see immediately how the app runs, how it behaves, are there any issues, are there any padding issues, overflows, does it actually run, is there transitions, do they work properly from one screen to another, as well as back to the main screen. And that is something that you can do in a lot of these no-code app builders. First of all, a lot of no-code app builders are not mobile first. And for those app builders that actually do mobile development, a lot of times you preview the app inside the app builder, which is nice and all, but the truth of the matter is that you're going to see some issues, and the app is going to look slightly different in many situations from the way the app looks when you're previewing it inside the tool, on your laptop, on your desktop, to the way the app actually looks when you actually run it on your specific device, on your physical device. And thankfully, using Bravo Studio, that's not an issue because you see immediately how the app that you're building looks on your physical device. And that is a big, big advantage. And so that was my comparison when it comes to FlutterFlow and Bravo Studio. Of course, there's lots of other functionality, lots of other features that each of these tools supports that might not be supported by another tool. And hopefully now you have a better idea which tool you're going to prefer for building the app that you want to build. In my view, each of these tools should definitely have a place in your toolbox. There are some things that FlutterFlow does amazingly, and also there are some things that Bravo Studio does amazingly. And you can certainly build specific apps with FlutterFlow and other types of apps with Bravo Studio. And so it's hard to say that you should be using one tool exclusively. Both of these tools are amazing. Both of these tools offer a lot of value. Now, if you want to take your no-code development to the next level, you definitely want to check out my Patreon page. On my Patreon page, you're going to get access to all the FlutterFlow apps that I've built on this channel. You're going to get access to all the Bravo Studio I've built on this channel so far, as well as all the future FlutterFlow apps, all the future Bravo Studio apps, as well as many of the other apps that we're going to be building using different app builders. And this way, you can get a head start by simply viewing the app, cloning the app, and modifying the app, and then seeing how the app behaves. That is a lot easier than building the same app from scratch or trying to gain experience by merely watching the video. And so you can join the community in the description. We have lots and lots of great people on there. And so it will be an awesome investment for your no-code development. And also, this is a great way to support the channel and support my work. And so hopefully you've gotten value from this video, you've gotten value from this comparison. If you did, I would highly appreciate a thumbs up. Also, please let me know in the comments below which of these tools you prefer. Let me know why or why not, and I'll see you in a future video.